Welcome everyone. Today we are going to read a very interesting topic, that is ways to improve retention of memory. Now according to Rayburn, memory is the power that we have to store our experiences and to bring them into the field of our consciousness sometime after these experiences have occurred. Now there are three stages of memory: encoding or registration, storage, consolidation or retention in the form of engrams, and retrieval or reproduction in the form of recall or recognition. In case of recall, no cues are present, and in case of recognition, cues are present. Now there are some factors which affect retention, such as our health conditions, whether we are interested in the subject matter or not, which affects our attention, how frequently we have learnt that matter, how recently we have learnt it, the primacy of that event to us, what is the significance of that matter for us, whether we are intelligent or to what level we are intelligent, whether we have learned the matter adequately or not, whether we have taken proper rest and sleep and relaxation or not. Now there are some ways of improving retention of memory. What are they? The first way is to plan a study schedule, to organize the study schedule in such a way so that I have a regularized time of study. Next is meaningful learning. That is, whenever we read something meaningfully, whenever we understand the meaning of something, we are able to retain that better. Subjective organization. That is, whenever we learn something, we have our own personal way of reorganizing that matter and chunking it into bits and pieces the way we would like to store them. So this helps us in remembering things better. Rehearsal or practice can be of two types. One is maintenance rehearsal, in which we merely repeat the item we have learnt, and elaborative rehearsal, in which we tend to meaningfully remember things by linking or associating it with other ideas or topics. Now overlearning. What is overlearning? Overlearning is that when we learn something, even after we have made a perfect recall of it, that is, when we learn something and we are able to remember all the points of it, despite it, we read it again and again. That helps us in remembering things better. Writing while learning and revising. That is, when we are learning something, if we read and write down the key points, and even while we are revising, if we just jot down the key points, they help us to remember things far better. Contextualizing and linking with past experience. That is, whenever we introduce a lesson, we always test the previous knowledge of the students, so that on the basis of that foundation of that knowledge, we can contextualize the present lesson and associate the previous schema of the students with the new ideas. Now, summarization, that is making a synopsis. When we consolidate a lesson at the end, that is attaining closure, while attaining closure, what we do is we usually jot down the main points on the board and we say, so students, today we have learned this. That helps us. The summarizing helps us in remembering things better. Discussion. When we learn something and discuss it with others, we tend to share our ideas and that our ideas get enriched. So this helps us to remember things better. Learning by doing. Active learning. That is when we do it hands-on, whether we are in a lab or whether we are in a field study. Always such learning helps us to retain the matter better. Whole versus part learning. That is, whether to read a matter as a whole or whether to read it in parts. Now when the matter is very small, then we can read it as a whole. But when it is exhaustive, then it is better to first read it in parts and then read it as a whole. Mass versus space learning. Now when we have a huge portion to learn, it is always advisable to give interim gaps of rest, because otherwise the mind gets fatigued and we are never able to retain what we've learned. Even while we are practicing, it should be spaced. That is, there should be intermittent periods of rest and consolidation of the idea in the mind. It should not be repeatedly practiced every day. So this spaced learning is very effective. Now, motivation and interest automatically help us to pay attention to a lesson. So while introducing a lesson, we always secure the attention of the students by developing their interest and by assessing their motivational level. So that helps in better retention. Use of rhythm. Any form of rhythm helps us to remember things better. That is the reason why in kindergarten schools, children are taught nursery rhymes with the help of rhythms. Now, correlation of ideas, association of ideas help us to better remember things. So when we correlate a matter with other topics or other subjects, that helps us to remember things better. Conducive and familiar environment. Now, when the learning environment is conducive, when it is friendly, it helps us in learning things better. And when we are supposed to retrieve whatever we have learned or registered in the same environment, in the same familiar environment, then the retrieval is better. For example, when students take examination in their home centers where they have learnt their lessons, then their retrieval is far better. Now, combining ideas into visual images and concept mapping. That is, when we take in abstract concepts in the form of visual images in the mind and we do in the form of maps, concept mapping, when we remember things in the form of visual images better, then things are retained better in our mind. Now, mnemonic devices. These devices basically are cues with which we remember things better. For example, alliteration, peg words, keywords, acronyms like VIBGYOR. These things help us to remember things better. SQ4R technique of reading. Now, in this technique of reading, what we do is we first survey the matter to be read on the whole. Then we ask certain questions to ourselves regarding the matter. Then we read the matter and try to answer the questions we have asked to ourselves. Then we reflect upon the matter. We think about the matter and then we recite the matter, recapitulate the matter, and finally through distributed practice, we review the matter once again. And finally, managing stress. Stress is a very big impediment to learning and retention. So, if we practice certain stress management skills such as meditation, pranayama, exercising, a healthy diet, and proper sleep habits, all these things help us to reduce our anxiety, reduce our stress and fear. And all these things help us to learn better, to register better, and to retain better. So these are some of the most effective ways in which we can improve retention of memory. So that is all about the topic. Thank you so much.